Hey there, Emma here, and in 2023 I hosted a painting challenge called Dogtober where we painted a different dog breed every day of the month. You may have seen some of the clips that I posted on Shorts at the time, just showing like a few little clips from each painting, but I've decided to go and pull out the real-time footage and share them this year so you can follow along if you'd like to. A couple of disclaimers/explainers. The point of the challenge for me was that I wanted to try and loosen up. I'm a realistic portrait artist, and so I gave myself a smaller size to work with as well as a time frame. I'm painting on roughly about A6 size paper, which is pretty small. In terms of measurements, that's like roughly 10.5 centimeters by 14.8 centimeters or 4.1 by 5.8 inches. And I also tried to set myself a time limit of about 15 minutes. I really wanted to challenge myself to loosen up, but you can approach this any way you like. Maybe you'll do it in a different medium or a certain color palette. The options are endless, totally up to you, but you're more than welcome to follow along, and these are kind of like mini tutorials. I do want to point out though that as this was unusual for me and a challenge to me, not all of them are that good. I really struggled in the beginning to start loosening up, and particularly struggled with the long-haired dogs. But you know, it's an adventure and you'll see me progress through the month and learn a lot. If you want to grab the outline sketches, I have put all 31 sketches into a document, a PDF that you can download from my website. I will link that in the description. You'll just need to pop your email address in, which will sign you up to my mailing list, but then you'll get the document with all 31 outline sketches, roughly about the same size that I'm painting. You're more than welcome to print them, trace them, size them up or down if you need to. I'll be working with my usual set of supplies and mixing colors as well, but I will talk you through the process as we go. Let's jump in. Day 21 of Dogtober, and we have a very familiar color palette. We have tan and brown and gray. So I'm going to get started with mixing up a bit of an orangey color here for our tan. I've got some primary yellow and primary red, mixing that all together. To make a brown color, you simply add a little bit of blue into that mixture. So blue plus orange will create brown. You might need to experiment with how much of each you need to put in. Generally start with a very small amount of blue and then work your way up if you need to add more. I've just started a new puddle to the side doing a similar thing, but also just letting it get dirtied up by all the grey-black colour that was already underneath it. So getting my way to both of those colours now. And we will get a start on this one. I quite like this one. I do happen to fuss around a lot towards the end, which is just my weakness, being more of a realistic portrait artist in this whole challenge. It's been a real tough time trying to loosen up, and I start off strong and then I kind of lose my way, but that's all right. So we're going to get started by painting in all of the orange and tan color. So I'm going to start off here with orange on my brush, and I'm just putting a little curve there on like the outer fold of the ear. I'm going to leave a gap there, and we'll come back and add some brown to that later, and that'll be like a little highlighted edge. But we're going to pop this orange color around the eye as well. A little bit watery here, and I did just flick over to a smaller brush. So I usually paint with a size 8, 6 and 3/0 round. Going around the far eye as well. And then we are going to start adding some brown into this. And you want to be a little bit careful too. My mix is looking quite watery, and that's just going to mean that it's going to get pushed around a little bit by the brown if we've just got too much moisture there. But we're going to start off near the ear now. I'm going to pop that color in, and it's up to you whether you want to let them touch a little bit and blend and bleed and kiss each other. But I have gone in and let them do that. But on the underside of the ear, I've left a very small gap, and that's just going to mean that orange stays nice and bright on the very edge of that ear. Going in with the brown now and running that across the top of the head, leaving a few gaps here and there, and of course leaving the white marking that runs down the center of the face. Bringing this color across the other side of the face now and letting it meet up with the orange in a couple spots, but leaving some gaps, and that's just going to help control that color exchange and stop it from just completely taking over the orange. I've popped some brown on the ear, and this one's kind of like poking up a little bit. So I'm going to go in there with just a little bit of orange in the middle, leaving gaps on either side, and just have a bit of a highlighted area in there. I'm going to take the orange further down on the far side of the face, dip into some brown and just pop a little bit kind of near the chin and around the edge of the face. Bringing the brown a little bit further down the center of the head near the marking and dropping a bit more color in as well. Just small adjustments, taking my time. The longer this sits, the more it'll soak in and start to dry, and it won't explode everywhere when we add something to it. I'm going to dip into this color now, which is our gray color. So to mix that, you can do the same technique as the brown, except just keep adding blue. You might need to adjust the color. If you see a big bias, mine is always green. You want to add the opposite color to that on the color wheel, which in that instance would be red. You just want to keep canceling it out over and over again. So I'm going to go in with this color to shade the body. So I've taken that right up against the face, well, not right up against the bottom of the face, but where we've got the orange and brown, I'm leaving a small gap so we can not have it blend and bleed there. And I have cut out a little bit of the leg on the far side, or the left side, I should say, just so it's going to stand out a bit more. It kind of looks a bit too big, to be honest. I'm not sure if I should have done that. I should have just maybe just kind of faded the bottom of it out and not tried to shade the belly or these front legs and back legs. It's kind of like maybe a bit too much of an unnecessary detail, but I've added a darker value to the left side of the chest, the left legs, the underside of the belly, the inside of the right leg, now under the chin and onto the chest. So definitely leave out the legs if you want to. I think it just kind of drew unnecessary attention to the whole body. Kind of looks like it just looks like he works out. So yeah, probably didn't need to do that, but I'm going to erase the outline sketch around that area because it was very visible and we don't need it anymore. And I'm going to go in with this grey colour and start to do a few little details. So I'm going to take a light bit of this colour down the centre of the face, into the white of the fur, and just all around the side of the nose as well. You can go over the nose, we're going to be able to see the sketch through it anyway. Dropping some darker colour right down the centre of the nose and the far side of the snout. Just shading that area and pushing it back. Rinsing off, dabbing off and into some brown. We're going to paint the little eyes in now. So you can leave a gap on either side of the iris because that can be the inner and outer corner of the eyes. I go over these a few times. I didn't quite get a dark enough colour the first time. You might be more successful. Carefully doing the other side, and just remember they're not supposed to be the same size and shape. That the side I'm painting right now is further away from us, so it's okay if that looks smaller. I'm just going to lift a little bit of colour off the right side of the snout and then dry it all off. I do use my heat gun a little bit in this portrait, as much as I've been trying to avoid it. Back into the grey colour now and popping in a little bottom lip situation there, so just really negatively painting out the top of the snout. Little triangle and then fading it out. I'm going to pop some little rough markings on the snout as well. I feel like we did this for, what do we do it for? The Basset Hound, but in a brown. Just spreading that around. A few little splotches. And on the far side. Into some brown now, and I'm going to go over these eyes again because they're just way too pale. I probably just should have used a 3/0, something that's not capable of holding very much water, so I could load it up with pigment and just get this done a lot sooner. I think I just kept having way too much water on my brush, so it was a watery mixture, and then when I dry it off, it just goes light. I've dipped into some Mars Black now for the nostrils, so going to paint the nostrils in, two little sideways commas and also the split between them I did first. You can use the grey colour if you like. I've just been reaching for my pre-made black for these details throughout Dogtober. Just make sure it stands out a little bit more when we paint the nose in, which is exactly what I'm doing now. So I'm going to paint this in, concentrated colour on the bottom and the left, and then I'm going to rinse off, dab off, and just kind of invite that colour over to the rest of the nose shape. Make it a little bit more highlighted on the right side, top right side. And you can also just lift a bit of colour off with your brush manually like I'm doing here to give you that highlight. A third layer on the eyes, going in with brown again. I'm concentrating it more at the top this time. In a lot of these portraits, I've not been painting the pupils in. I've just been darkening up the top of the eyes, not worrying about exactly where the pupil is. They're just so tiny. So just been making sure the top of the eye is darker and there's a bit of a gradient happening there. So this is where I start to just lose my mind a little bit and start focusing on all the little details, but I wanted to start carving in a bit of an expression on the dog's face. So going in with a little bit of orange on a dry layer, and we just want to pinch this eyebrow up towards the middle, get a real innocent look to it, real puppy dog eyes. So we've got that little triangular shape leaning to the right, and I'm just going to shade all under the eye on the far side as well. Taking a little bit of colour up the left side of the white marking on the centre of the face as well. Then we're going to work on the right side now, so getting started on the right side of that marking. And just starting to bring some colour across. I somehow just managed to make this eye so much bigger on this side, and I think that's what really throws me, and I get stuck with what am I doing? Like I put this line under the eye just there, and I think it just like really made this eye look ginormous. But I'm just trying to shade under the eye and figure out a bit of an expression here. So just really having a play, making some brush marks, revisiting. It's a bit of an experiment. Add a little, take a little away. Chiseling in a bit of a jawbone now. Into some brownie colour and just adding more to the inner corner of the eye. A little bit on the outer corner. I'm going to go into some white, not gouache, white watercolour now and do the highlights just before I take it too far. Let's get them in and see where we're at. Sometimes it's good to put some of those final details in that, you know, we're not going to have to paint over the eyes again, so it's okay to put them in now, but it's just a good idea sometimes because you might pop them in and then go, you know what, I'm actually done. I don't need to do more detail. So I'm popping in a couple little highlights, 2 little dots. It's looking very cute puppy dog eyes now. And so I'm going to pop another one on the far side as well, just one because we've got a little bit of a smaller eye on that side. I'm going to very carefully pop a little inner corner highlight as well. On the far side, just trying to change the shape of the eyes a little bit here. So I tried to extend the one on the left a little bit and make the one on the right a little bit shorter. And this is where I start to fuss and fiddle. So I'm just really scumbling, rubbing my brush around here, trying to play around with how do I make this more sunken into the face? Because the other one looks pretty good, but what's going on with this one on the right? So what do I do? Instead, I play with the one on the left more that is already fine. But just playing around, I should have, tried to make it a little bit smaller, but sometimes trying to fix things makes it worse and you just try and work with what you've got. I've gone in with some orange now to really deepen that on the right, really going under that eye and on the inner corner. Rinsing off, dabbing off, so I've just got a watery brush and I'm just trying to fade that out, have a bit of a soft gradient happening there. Into some brown, and I'm just going to put this around the top of the eye, reduce the size of that a little bit as well. Just very gently cutting that down. Blending the colour around while trying to still keep a bit of a highlight on the cheek and a little bit more darker colour on the left side, on the inner eye. We're getting there now. So I'm going to dry that all off. Again, fussing with the inner corner of this eye, trying to reduce the eye size to try and match it up with the other one a bit more. It's looking a bit better. Drying it off. Still fussing with that. Just spending a lot of time here doing this. You might not need to, but you know what? I leave all this stuff in anyway, just so you know the realities and how we get from A to B. But I'm going to add a little bit more colour to the underside of the nose here. Dry that all off. Final details now. Let's add some whiskers in now because we have a white background, a white chest, a white snout. Let's not paint white whiskers or it's going to be pretty pointless. So I'm going in with some Mars Black again. A lot of artists don't believe in using pre-made black colours in watercolour. They think you should always use a colour that you mixed yourself. I don't really care when it comes to such small details like whiskers and nostrils and pupils. it's not going to make your painting look flat, and they're called convenience colours for a reason. They are convenient. So doing some whiskers here, you want to try and vary up the shape, the size, the direction, cross some over each other. Don't worry if you get little breaks in the lines and the brush skips over the paper, it looks more natural. Try to avoid going back to fix it up because that's often when you make it worse and blobby. I always like doing the whiskers that pull towards me more. The ones on the left I struggle with, but you can get around that by rotating the paper to suit you. I am once again fiddling with this little eye, and we are almost done though. So I hope you enjoy this Jack Russell tutorial. I think he's super cute, and I will see you in the next one.